I am going to read all of Dolphin Skull today. It's in two parts. It's 63 pages long. I hope my voice holds out. I've got tea with lemon and honey, the old radio guy trick. And what else? I'll probably pause maybe between stanzas to let people in because I have a feeling people are going to be late. So, with that said, welcome to Zoom. Wish we could do this in person, but I'm grateful to be able to do this via this technology. And I'm wearing a hat that Michael gave me. That's why I've had hair. I'm going to be reading from the book Three Poems, and the original version that I had was autographed by Michael in 1995 when I interviewed him for my syndicated public affairs radio show for Paul Nelson and Grief and Joy in the Olympics. And I told him about taking this book into the Olympic National Park on a backpacking trip, going up to 5,000 feet, Appleton Pass. In fact, then I went a little higher than that, looking at this pristine bioregion. And I was reading from a portion of it where the words on the page are, I believe, capitalized and double spaced and centered. And they say, more alive than I ought to be. And I looked out at the scene and where we'd seen bears, where we'd seen a spring come right out of the hill and gotten our water. And I thought, more alive than I ought to be. I think I know what he's talking about. And it was an experience that I'll never forget. And I've gone up to that site a few times since then, and trees have grown up. The view is not the same, but the feeling was really quite remarkable. So I'll get to that point. And there are two parts of this poem, and there's a shift. I'll take a slight break and then go on to the second part. My interview with him on my site, paulenelson.com, is available for anyone to listen to. And also the transcription of the interview that was made is part of American Prophets, a book that I published at SPLAB's 25th anniversary, and that's available online. So with that said, I'm going to go right into three poems. And Michael wrote Dolphin Skull for Paul Nelson, who knows this poem better than I do and sees more into it as if it is a Haida sculpture. And he wrote that at Doe Bay when we brought he and Amy to Doe Bay for Michael to do a reading. And I'm going to read the author's part, at least part of it. There are three lives here in one book: Dolphin Skull, Rare Angel, and Dark Brown. Each is like a living being with eyes and ears and fingers, and each is as different from one another as living creatures are unique. I wrote all three spontaneously in projective verse, using the syllable and the energy of the breath as the structure of the poem. To write spontaneously does not mean to write carelessly or without thought and deep experience. In fact, there must be a vision and a poetics that are alive and conscious. The moment of writing is complex, and at the same time, it is natural and vigorous. I do not know of a more adventurous gesture than to write spontaneously. Whether a poem is born from exuberance or depression, there must be ebullience, hunger for freedom, and imagination. When the poem is finished, I listen to it and look at it on the screen or in the ink of the pen and see that it has deeper consciousness and brighter thoughts than I was aware of while writing. Sometimes there is difficulty in a poem. The obscurity, the ununderstandability is not there for the purpose of evasion, but it is the energy compressing and leaping and rippling, just as a wave ripples with silver in the moonlight. Even in darkness, one can see that it is a silver wave. Goethe believed poetry should be incomprehensible and incommensurable. All art is that way to some degree, but much art seems flat and lacking in courage because it neglects to be difficult. If poetry and science cannot change one's life, they are meaningless. The meaning is that we may become more able to ring true to our deep selves. If a poet risks being accused of esotericism in order to be vigorous and to give meaning to the poem, then that's a small price. What is urgent is not the quantity that is understood as one reads a poem, but how much one uses the richness of one's being to have the experience of the poem. And then skip to the part about Dolphin Skull. Dolphin Skull is in two sections. Stanzas in Memory is written directly from the unconscious in the sense that Jackson Pollock's psychoanalytic drawings were from the unconscious. What I saw was simply there and was not planned in order or method except the systemless one, that is the creative act. Portrait of the Moment, the second section, begins with the 12th stanza of the first section, repeats it, and then continues without interruption to very consciously and spontaneously explore that single moment for as long as it unscrolls insensory images. Consciousness melted my travels through Kenya and Tanzania while watching eagles and lions and baboons, in with the primal stuff of infancy, youth, manhood, and the present, all in one moment. I see now that all moments are one and the same moment. Following Dolphin Skull, there is an afterword describing the writing of the second section of the poem. It also explains the poem's title. Dolphin Skull, 1995. If you haven't muted your mic, please do so at this time. Stanzas in Memory. Epigraph, Lap proverb. The memories of one's youth make for long, long thoughts. So the owl hoots, turquoise, musk, white linen. Deer in the yard, a stag with antlers. Boyhood in the park of the body that smells like the ocean as it washes on the greensward. Your blue eyes, you, looking with love. I'll leave you, and I ought to be scared as my skin wrinkles. The boy dreams of grandpa. As I get huger, I become streams stretching into shadows of memories, just as I taste the blackberry. As the tiny white flies flurry around it, there is the blood where the thorn cuts me. Helicopters clatter over the canyon in sunlight. Blackness is just a mask of fat for somebody. The tiny white flies are making a cloud in the tears of the brambles swarming around the dark fruit. The clouds are alive. This cloud is a life. This cloud is a life as the great horned owl hoots three calls. The pony of memory tramples the rattlesnake. Sunset colors of apricot and layers of black over the ocean. A puff of summer dust where the buckeye butterfly lands. Mystic wings of planets and scarlet nebulae. A lock on the machine gun under the bed. Faces twisted in pain from the old times when love hurt so much that it is spotlights filled with legs and mouths writhing. Nylon stockings filled with sentimental songs are stained with blackberry juice like my fingers, and I love you. Your blue eyes. Crinkle of frost on the windows. This is all fog off the ocean coming over the line of brown hills. Tailgating drivers behind me with stoic faces of Arnold Schwarzenegger. The city is a mammal vision in peaks of fog. Jack Pumpkinhead is laughing with the Tin Man, and an axe chops through it all, showing the dry grain and the whorls. Raphael found the rules and was freed. The cloud that Raphael found is the rules of freedom. Dark green shamrocks grow in a bowl where dead friends live in dreams. Sounds of blue black jays screaming. My arm around Robert, helping him into my car. Crazy John's new book is like your poetry, I say, showing him the fine printing. How? It's the elegance, I answer. The gray-brown moth flutters over the brick red and scarlet and blue of the prayer rug. You, your blue eyes, the daintiness of your ankle, your deep wit. These are the reasons I am alive. Miro knows it is all play, and Pollock understands the unconscious power. Now there are lions in the woodwork. Now I smell my grandma as she looks at me through her thick glasses. Now I understand the sexual addiction of my young manhood was a crucifixion, glittering and lovely as an ostrich boa and smashed mirrors seen on acid. Eagles seen on acid are the rules that are broken in old poetry. The fierce eye, the neighing hand of the boy, the cracks with festoons of dust on the yellowing plaster ceiling, broken old car doors tied shut with ropes. Please come and take care of me is the child's prayer, grimly pleaded into a black eternity, becoming the bulk of the body. My God, no, don't do this to me. My God, my God, my God, don't do this to me. Don't do this to me. Don't do this to me. I am alone in Grandpa's dark basement praying to you. I don't want to become an eagle when I die. Don't let the flames burst from this sooty smoke. There is the endless concrete freeway in the sun, then the cool fog. I have blown up and cooked myself over a fire. Smell the pot roast and the noodles. I can hear my eardrums burst. Toes on damp moss, broken shells in sand. Broken shells in sand are not superhuman. Everything is divine. The body is the soul, the intelligent body. Cries from the sand are little crab's eyes, creepy and bright in the musky smell of decaying algae and sunshine. A cold wind makes chilblains and bumps on the skin. Going back to the moment of the Big Bang. The Big Bang is the consciousness of lions dispersing the eagles. An eagle lands on the bare tree by the car and tears up a rabbit. Souls are dead babies. You know these things, like the smell of new tires, while flight after flight of planes with bombs pass over. I am still here, just as I ever was. I am furious and fragile and trembling, just as I ever was. Begging is heroic, striding as free as spirit can in its swirls, breaking up rainbows of agonies into actions. Part of this dark flow that is turned over and over by the hands of light with fingernails of movies of suns spraying the darkness, gray hair on the floor. Gray hair on the floor and the radio talking. Steering wheel, more real than anything else. Foggy yellow lights in the tunnel. Skinny, addled, wrinkled, childlike old Horowitz playing Scriabin on TV. Me playing this beautiful pen. More alive than I ought to be. More alive than I ought to be. Oceans and freeways of grief and guilt, triumphs of bare feet and drugs up the nose, child of cocaine and raccoons in hollow logs. Fusus cryptestae filet. Nature loves to hide herself in Leonardo's secret language and the dimensions that disappeared after the bang. Old men dreaming of great grandfathers are very wise, like sow bugs and wooden spools wound with scarlet thread, and an antlered buck that drinks from a bowl in the yard in moon shadows. The sowbug rests in the shadow of a pine cone, and red cars cruise by while the world is making itself with my senses. Can this be the beginning of old age? Fear comes in stars of consciousness, and now I am somewhere else. The thorns in my finger make stars. The blackberry is sweet and black and red and bitter. Cries of red-tailed hawks are imitated by blue blackjays. Covers of old magazines are glossy, erotic. My sexuality grows underneath them like a rock rolled up on a beach by the edge of huge waves. I'm listening to you in my mind, a museum of dirty pictures. No one is interested, but the lion knows as he speaks to the eagle. This is all blackness. This is a cave holding a bowl of beef soup with the leaves and odors of Vietnamese basil. I will not eat baby animals. To chew on their ribs is tasty and revolting. I am spirit. I am a child with you. Spirit, I am a child with you. Everything is an homage to Jack Kerouac, while Norman Mailer creates great existential acts larger than literature, entering through the realm of the senses, what is called the sensorium. Brown baboon turning around on the log to look at us, inventing lives, running fingers through the clinks of smooth rocks, in rage pushing a friend into the swimming pool near the pygmy mongooses, elephant skeletons spread out like explosions on the dry yellow grass, and gerfalcons squawking with anger, flying around their nest in the cliff. The car tries to drive over me from behind like my stepfather's face, and what triumphs of sexuality and pride like baby lambs cavorting and happily and clumsily butting old wooden fences in the darkness of carnivore consciousness. Stick figures of Jack and Jill. Stick figures of Jack and Jill. Figures of Jack and Jill in the teacher's face like a huge moth in midair. Billy Goat's gruff look at the pattern on the wings. Red and brown planets with auras and the miraculous pitcher. Crayfish in ponds under bridges. A dead friend's eyes through his wire rimmed glasses. His laugh has become part of my bones. This city of my heart was once innocent as a baby, and we grew up in it. Shoe shops, bakeries, umbrella shops in department stores, seasons of heavy rains and babies, cold silver wings, steaming food on a wooden table, extremes of poverty, agonies over the rent, faces twisted by love in the night, bodies tearing at one another like sleek figures high on the drugs of our glands. And still we are all gods, and I have a huge face. I am a god with a huge face. Lions and eagles pour out of my mouth, big white square teeth and a red purple tongue. There are magenta clouds around my head, and this is my throne room. Actors perform the drama of my being inside of you, wearing your skin. I am writhing and clawing. Beg for mercy. Blackberry bramble catching my pants leg. A tearing sound. Deep inside in the padded car. Garbage truck full of petroleum fantasies. Dogs barking under the dark, tall pine trees, hollyhocks, and a few pink roses. You are everyone, but I am nobody. Nobody is very large and powerful. Memory is naked bodies in a battle. The war is sensuous as a little boy's penis. Fighter planes are guns. I am the river god, in love with my dreams. Not dreams, but ongoing presences, spewed from the bang through a nervous system, at the edge of things, but reaching way back inside. Way back inside is the castle of things. These things never were except as I knew them. A white polar bear rug on a shining floor, glass eyes and huge yellow teeth, fossil ivory, Christmas trees with tinsel, a friend blown up in a car wreck, false voices of self assurance, peyote visions like endless counters at Cresses, shoe polish lids and lint, brooms with dark grease on them, the view of the brown hills by moonlight while the crickets sing, the sound of rocks as they move in the river, and a moldy deer skeleton with ribs ripped out by the jaws of the cougar. This is all me, the same as I ever was, crying in movies, laughing and drunk and kicking a door in with long hair blown back in the wind of my hormones. Sneaky and proud, watching the fire while mysterious beings form in the air. Faust wants no more. Never say, hold, let this moment never cease. Hold, let this moment never cease. Drag it out of context. Look at the roots of it in quarks and primal hydrogen. It's the sound of Shelley's laugh in my ears. You think we are bodies walking up to one another and speaking, kissing, holding hands. A universe before man ever was, filled with dragonflies in your eardrums, palm trees and skyscrapers, vervet monkey in the euphorbia tree staring at me. The lion is consciousness, the eagle is experience, as real as mud chiming with light from rainbows. Fuck you, right in your face. Fuck you, he pulls out a gun in reply. Gun the size of a toilet. Blue black. Bullets fire into a world made of stacks of dirty feet, eyes of starving families, dust from red clay. Something is purring or flying. Sound of thunder jars loose dead leaves, and they slowly fall while the bell rings. There is no conflict in memory while the bell rings. Free association is a red blue tongue up the ass. She looks like Elizabeth Taylor. It's a penthouse, and the mind is there and somewhere else. Robert Duncan called these things glamours. Mind means nothing but consciousness. A rock has it, and a toadstool, and a field of subparticles and a complex protein as it loops, tying a knot, a mouth with a cock in it, babies crying in the next room. Blackberries glisten with it, and the webs covered with dust and particles from car fumes and the pollen of eucalyptus. Sometimes there is the sound of attack rifles and the Amtrak between owl hoots, turquoise, musk, white linen, pelican ink, concrete walls with words on them in spotlights. Ride a cock horse to Banbury Cross, where an old toad hops in the basement in the smell of bluing. Water boils in the big copper tub. White sheets will be dipped in the bluing, wrung out in the wringer, and then hung up to dry. The substrate is so vibrant that I can't get close to it. It is you who are as the owl hoots. Van Gogh drawing must have felt like this. The hunter throwing the chipped stone hand axe, flint and obsidian. A spirit rises from blood. The substrate is so violent, volatile, vibrant. I birth myself in memories, just as Burma's vision of dawn. And you crawl from the gold, liquid gold of rosy color, and give birth to me. You are my memories of you holding my hand. I want to go anywhere. I am a flowering, brave, fearful, scared to death by the boredom. A fat gray kitten rolling on its back, sinking its baby claws, clean, thin baby claws into a soft pink hand. That's all fini, the end of beginning. The old rabbit winks. The old rabbit begins to wink, then the pony tramples the rattlesnake. Eagle bones in a dream. The eternal dimensions before the bang have closed themselves off. This one tries to be the realm of entropy. Sombreros the color of children's cookies. Colorlessness at the edges of things. Radiances of blue silver clouds and mountain ranges of cool white fog. I'm in a black suit with wide legs. You are elegant. with soft arms and strong fingers. There is joy in the room sometimes, and it is the field of complex presences. Big, clear laughs are the best, and deep seeing eyes looking back through the muscles of mastodon hunters out towards the edge of the solar system and a wall of surprising stars. All of this through the background blur of one dimensionality, psyche projections, and vibrancies of the substrate as it turns itself inside out like a protein. Inside out like a protein, the owl hoots. Big trouble. The child is waiting. Love streams. Learn indolence from dust. Tonto says owl hoots are people in ambush. Incommensurable and incomprehensible are the best of poetic creation, the old man sings. The galaxies are a river seen from this direction. The child knows it is all black behind the eyes, and that flesh is a swirl of hungry fantasies, each loving the other. Mallarmé throws it down on the deck of the sinking ship in the storm and the maelstrom. Snake eyes, right on the planks. Skeletons bartering their muscles for gold. Not likely, but the glitter is divine as the caterpillar. I hated the bombers flying over. I could not save them or myself. Napalm, the demon self with soft eyes, stabbing Hamlet in the throne room. Discover you are Hamlet with the blade up your ass. You are Hamlet with a blade of grass in your teeth like an old farmer with a piece of straw. Cracker barrels where the dog pissed. This is all a string of pearls with reflections of reflections in the opulent, glimmering surface of endless flaws, making a surface for the fingertips to touch while remembering perfumes. These are shadows of the wisps of nothingness. This is a collection of skulls on a mantle. Eagle, lion, bat, goat, raven, sea turtle, salmon. A power pack for the emotions to grow through the taste of blackberries and the sound of the jays and the footprints of the stag in the yard. Free as the cloud of white flies in the brambles, going the way of all flesh, caught in the roar of the planes passing over, while the bronze bell rings in the wind. Triangles of sunlight pass over the rug. Pretend this is not blackness. This is not blackness. This is a bell ring. Portrait of the moment. Stop. Hold this moment, let this moment never cease. Drag it out of context. Look at the roots of it in quarks and primal hydrogen. It's the sound of Shelley's laugh in my ears. You think we are bodies, walking up to one another and speaking, kissing, holding hands. A universe before man ever was, filled with dragonflies in your eardrums, palm trees and skyscrapers, vervid monkey in the euphorbia tree staring at me. The lion is consciousness. The eagle is experience, as real as mud chiming with light from rainbows. Fuck you right in your face. Fuck you. He pulls out a gun in reply. Gun the size of a toilet. Blue black. Bullets fire into a world made of stacks of dirty feet. Eyes of starving families. Dust from red clay. Something is purring or flying. Sound of thunder jars loose dead leaves and they slowly fall while the bell rings. The bell chimes red-headed linnets wiping their beaks on the green lichen. Planes roar from the airport mixing with sounds of the traffic. Raindrops on the brim of a hat. Round yellow seeds among hailstones on the gray wet planks. The self coming out like cloud. cloud of faces and shoulders, big cloud, bulk, made out of meat, all imagination like the river god, rippling shoulders and muscles and hungers and actions and their substrates in childhood, as childhood has become dark meat, like Rexroth said. It's the eagle of experience feathered with faces. It's the thought of the body at the edge of things. It's the physics of physiology, the universe's athlete. It's a real if, like the odor of chinchilla fur or car tracks and deer prints side by side in day old mud. Real cloud of faces and gone now. Demon warriors and toad men, and sneaky thoughts before glass cabinets with secret drawers and smell of frankincense wrapped in pink panties and raw meat, then buried in statues of dreams at midnight by an old barbed wire fence while the car motor runs. The face in each feather is dumb and simple. The eagle and the lion are wrapped in one thing, but that is beside the point, where light becomes meat, being buried in boys' leg muscles or the plumpness of wrists and the baby's interlocking of eyes. See me. It's all at the edge of things, becoming the matter we are, making the groundwork, protein groundwork from gases and stars in a plasma. With all the dimensions there, in that, we only have hints of here in this tiny, huge space. Architecture of something else that is seen as stuff, an intelligent flatworm, a hammer, moss rubbed over the surface of a turquoise, streetlights in fog, enzymatic structures of subtle happiness in an old woman's words. Look at her glasses there, inside of me somewhere, in the future, scratched on a scale on a moth's back next to the vistas of a dark ocean seen from the hilltop. Children shouting, dog piles of boy fighting, smell of mincemeat pies and snuff, pictures of duck hunting inside of sleeping bags, looking down at my solid hands, posing with chunky fingers of sculpture laid out being themselves for me and everybody in an image while I look up through my dark brows, as old as what will happen, and bright as the corners of coal bins and the smell of coal dust, sound of cinders dumped out over iron rust. Awareness enlarges, a process till I walk through caves of it, wooden yo-yos, alive and lithe and powerful as a blue-black snake or a wet beach stone. It twists and writhes with muscles moving the big scales I imagine, in imitation of something in the original dark density that never was till this place, on the scroll, with the chunky fingers laid out over themselves and my eyes looking up through dark brows. What power! What power, if power is luminosity and darkness in patinated bronze like a bell ring? Lines of tigers and owls in glyphs speaking of ceremonies turn blue green, patchy, dark green, black, and crusty brown, smooth as the surface of a tooth. Everything taken from damp tombs. Sexuality is there, a cramp in the neck and shoulders, stopping the smooth, flowery pleasure from rippling through the somatic segments, making a tilt to the head, an engaging look in its formation coming up out of baby meat as a gloss on both sides of the scroll. The scroll is the point that is never there. Kicking down a door and shouting in drunken rage, long hair blown back with storm of hormones. Paper mache Santa Clauses brought out in the smell of unwrapped Gouda cheese with scent of lizard excrement on the fingers, and stacks of comic books like folklore, riffling images of Puck and Puka and comic cape creatures with goggles diving from windows. In all the deep, deep thought of dimensions seeking to return to their full complexity, everywhere in drafts and rainbows, dusty window shades and screaming murders, night sounds of cities on Easter morning, All of the outside swirled in the instant, its cytoplasm and mitochondrial stars as building blocks for the rooms we inhabit. Never put the finger on it. The sun reflected on dull nails. Hold, this must not cease. Her jasmine odor on the stone bridge over the river. Fear I am losing her. Red brown cowboy boots. Heel sounds on cobblestone in darkness. Harmonica playing while the robins sing. There's no surprises here. We are always here. This is philosophy of Whitehead's prehension. Hysterical Socrates at the window giggling, dried roses standing in the dusty vinegar cruet, making energy for an old poem. Passion in the chest is beating like blood, and the singular intelligence of a mammal in an old soft shirt and Levi's. It's all passion and calmness, meat and air, tendrils. Tendrils growing from tendrils, lashing out of tendrils, interwinding and twining in the primal stuff of the future, where there used to be sunlight through the window on the wooden furniture as I look up through dark brows, throwing light on the camera there. Rimbaud guessed it, and Artaud is a brother in the dusty basement with dirt under feet and a flashlight looking for heroin as I clutch Mickey Mouse and Goofy spinning through sexy corridors of unread books. The tunnel is the outside, and matter is a dot of nothing on no scroll, not even a gloss. The passion is real. The eagle, the lion, the tiger, the wolf. Passion remains when the matter disappears. It is comprised of the absence of nothingness. Passion is the chest and the wrists and the elbows in the moment. All moments are one deep density as garbage trucks are and a plane passing over. The white bell blossoms of the naked branch manzanita say it in the raindrops. The regret and the guilt are bursting inside with fleshly joy and torn scraps of blue plastic paper on the moving roller, where the twin fawns may starve together in a vision of the goddess of mercy, and gravity waves are hallucinations caused by the absence of senses. The sensorium is unlimited, but it is out of touch with the density dimensions. This is a prow cutting through it all, being it all as I slip out into it, where it is in me, repeating itself in tendrils of spirit, making it a riffle of soul and soap opera of serious, dark, passionate brows and hormones and meat. What is wrong with happiness? The flatworm asks, and the owl hoots while the eagle tears up a rabbit. Take a deep breath. Let it be a big picture made in all imaginable senses. Fear of the last quiver in the muscles and jerk of the sinews in the leg under the long scaled fingers, talons clutched into the furry neck, whistle of expelled air, sight of big brown eyes, smell of rabbit blood, pink inside of the beaks of downy chicks, a raven's quirk and visual flash of baboon below on a log, and spaces of nothingness in protein molecules. Acacia thorns, the biochemical synergy of hunger filling itself in smooth ebullience, marching to the music of stars seen from the night roosting over the edge of the cliffs. Without sense, it looks like disorderly flames, chaos, complexity, demon warriors, toad men, combustions of petroleum in small chambers. With the sensorium broken into particles, it is everything, looking up through dark brows at itself while a babe coos in a bedroom and a lover is born during the earthquake. One wing beats with a smooth, angry, joyful sound, and the beak closes on neck fur, perfume of rabbit in the midst of the overwhelming purring that is the backdrop, the basic sound of the unhearable mantra carved out of lotuses and hummingbirds' heartbeats and the early universes at the beginning of the lightning flash. Raindrops hanging on plum leaf buds, sunlight and moonlight on the craggy redwood bark, and the smell of the car, inside of the car, dusty felt and ersatz velvet as it drives through the cliffs of the desert. skull on the tabletop, squares of woven straw rugs, point lobos, as it always is, with a whale skeleton and molecules of Robinson Jeffers' breath and shoe soles looking up out of my eyes, sensing back and outwards into a vision at the camera. Beautiful toes in the shower. What intensity of consciousness in everything. No, it is everything. Wet streams over the feet on the metal floor with smell of Roquefort from another coterminal dream of the original dimensions, beaming passion into meat, muscular meat, reaching out into stars and down into stars, inside of stars. No collar on the worn shirt. Poems about high heels and a baby on velvet in a flash of sun, grinning out from his little cap and sweater. Monkey in the barn with the horses of instruction, while the black 34 Ford boils over in the snow and the big green brown tadpoles waft through the pool over their shadows. A dot of light in each shadow proves it. Taste of Butterfinger bars in the bright hot sun like silver, and patterns of lichens over the volcanic rock hills in red, yellow, green, blue, brown, black. A laugh of passion with the nothingness of meat expanding in all directions as the extension of them. Big blue-black jay imitating the hawk's call. It's a bluff, a cliff, a ledge beating like a heart. From outside, where it emulates itself, limited only by senses. Let there be 10 trillion of them, and like light, everything is everything in an illusion of infinite flatness in all directions and writhing most lucidly in meat and doorknobs of brass and face-shaped galaxies. So quaint, so old-fashioned, as sweet and sour as grandma's sex life, with clear wings of liberty and joy. Just the air in the room outside the ears is everything. And he knows it in this lion state, that it's all the grumbling purr, smooth as invisible quicksilver, as the sulfur stone falls into it eternally, endlessly, 40 trillion years. A tiny sore bump on the tip of the tongue, the endless hamlets and duchesses of Malfi and Laurels and Hardys and Abbots and Costellos. Pirate ships and winged daggers, smell of sardines and baked beans or lima bean soup with ham hocks growing like assemblages from the blackness of the mystery. No color at all, not even black or a purr. Nowhere manifest and vibrant, dull and glossy, smelling like an old rock that has been battered half smooth by the stream, with deep eyes staring from the dramas of meat behind the eyes. It goes on and on endlessly, but there is no it except the presence, and no presence but passion or courage, and no passion or courage, even laughter. Laughter shaped like a purr, experiencing the wings and talons of itself, still mortal in the death screech of the rabbit. The lion is invisible, but hardly less there, and history marches with banners and Wagnerian songs through the small spaces between fingers lying upon chunky fingers on the smooth wooden tabletop. Smell of meat and coffee and black Spanish cigarettes. The lower lip knows everything, especially fear. Sculpture of fear making cliffs of passion and courage. Smell of pot in the car. Paintings of sailing ships over mantles on painted blue and white waves. Maya and molecules and nothing are the same. And here I am in quarks and quasars, always unseen in everything. Spirit descended into matter in a glitter of courageous fear and pride, looking for real souls to eat as I sail. Bang goes the blue-black gun. Fuck you right in your face pours up from the deepness, spreading out before consciousness, deepness flowing out of and into baby meat as the pussy willows open in a thicket of skinny tendrils and delicate gray, soft fur with a rippling sound of the stream running over rocks fallen from the cliffs while the hawk whistles above the madrone tree and flaps her wings 3 times, both at once, to catch up with her mate. It happened here on a carpet of moss. Swifts fly high, whistling and mating in the air in smoky summer sunset. Below the cliff, littered with carved stones and remains of walls, is the plaza. Cats walk over the grass, moving from tree to tree. A peacock called here. It is all a garden, a dance growing out of myself. All wild and all perfect, with no need to be, but passion and courage and fear all speak of something else. There is no enigma because it is all confrontation. Hound dogs and the sound of heaters running, rabbit blood, the camera, the high red-brown cliffs of the desert carved into sculptures of ancient kings and queens sitting on chairs of madder, backs erect and eyes looking out of the child way back in the smell of incense and tadpole ponds and dirty butts. These are the fingers lying on the other stubby fingers. Each one of them holds more consciousness than a lower lip or a brain, while everything whites itself out into what is there. It's just entropy with hunger pressing against it, shaping it into what it is, was, will be, melting into its Tathagatian self. One drop of blood on the talon and a spray of bloody fur on the breast. Flat as stars cut out of tinfoil, curly as memory growing out of its interwinding with experience while I imagine the lion roar on Christmas Eve. Not far away are crocodiles in the river and the sly fast ones under the bed, and little turtles with round flat tin bodies stare from these eyes in a dream at a board game with stick pegs carved out of cedar from Solomon's groves, blackberries growing over graves, old men living in the forests with pheasants and odd cries of ruby-crowned kinglets and thin catfish transparent as glass, all there in the iris, which is the whirling condescension of the moment into the purr and feather of hands, with the mouth slightly open in a pose. Real as fear and courage, as prudent as a grasshopper or whirlwind. Smell of Blake's molecules all over Job in the Old Testament. Jakob Burma, as drunk as Jesus. Swedenborg telling Sir Hans Sloane that birds are dreams in souls. Look at each one carefully. Vet it. Experience. Moving through consciousness is as dull as technicolor feathers flowing over mirrors, reflecting every passion and desire and frustrated hunger. Looking up through the brows while the bell chimes. Dark clouds pour over the hill. The city is the whir of the air in shapes of cars and trucks and riverbeds stood on end with windows and breasts and hats and elevators over the greensward. Hiss goes the city while the redwood grove is calm, turned into itself in a hiss or a purr. Dark brows and vacant stars containing everything, like the thicket of pussy willows in gray fur and the white blossoms of the plum tree bursting nearby. It's all stars, turning into a flow of laughing dragons with red scales and chests pouring over the edge of the brain, coming up from the soles of the feet, knot after knot at the base of the cortex, creating an attention stage focused on itself. Sporophytes in the dark, bright green moss smirk at the oak trees. Mothers show sharks to children. Lambs stand next to fences in Iceland, and planes land in the cold, foggy darkness of where the growling is heard, while the feathers beat and move with the ruffle of the intake of air. Toad men sit on the fallen tree by the baboon. A baby cries out with need for love and milk. The earth's crust shakes and the walls slip. It all happens by the young man's ears. Dramas in the sky of the room. Plots of river gods and goddesses and princes and queens. Blue, black bullet in the head of a president. Self coming out like the cloud. Cloud of faces. Personality as grimaces and holdings of muscles, gratuitous, well trained, and in pain. The Amtrak is a person as much as people are. Let it be the flesh that is self. Hold, let this moment never cease, but it never was eternally. Raindrops on gray planks and the smell of old cashmere sweaters where the rat gnaws the luggage case. The fingers slip up the other sleeve. The camera clicks. Photographer grins. Soul is the elimination of personality. Soul invents soul, like the deep cloud of somewhere else. Driving the car is personality enshrined. The poem shows nothing absent. The knuckles in the pen are a shadow on a page in the swirl, and the scroll spins. Hunger and courage are ends of the same worm that the robin pries from the golf course. Night is weighed in the scale in the room as the white plum petals fall into designs of rats drunk in the branches. The crossing of plane roars lead to the old windowsill and the purr it makes in the eagle's beak. This is it, and it's all perfect, imperfect, never was, nowhere, but a glossy brown Jeep station wagon. The cliff edge above the glittery silver flash, ocean of something else. Move on with big loops of blue black scaled biceps in the rosy aura of shimmer or crunch of woven straw under the boot heel. Walking through reflections of empty streets, there's no conflicted memory. It's all here where it never was. Laoco on loops of streetlights and the motes and motes of dust in the eyes, long gone into the future. A bearded man listens, imagining childhoods in Mexico, while the room purrs there in the middle of the wing beats and makes a lengthening growl in front of the bookcase. Smell of mackerel baking, leg of mutton, diapers, the child's big face in the doorway, babes singing in hallways, big land turtles pulling ornate red chariots over shining wood floors on the riverbank, mud of all kinds making veils. The parasite of personality drops away as the muscles and the muscles of spirit loop and throw out coils, exfoliate tendrils, comprehension. Understanding the taste of red purple grapes with green flesh and the seed nestled in there where the tongue glides in something written while high in the old days. Shaped like a star in all directions, the moment blasts and dodders and skims through everything, outside of everything, containing it. The dentist drills on the mountain range as if it were mute and dumb, dumb and mute, not hearing him. The nurse giggles in flattery at the base of the cliff where the snaggled tooth Indians push the jeep through mudbank. Lightning crash, pearls in the lotus bud. Mandalas of containers stacked for pickup with the milk tanks. A wall of cicadas singing turned into a roar of the ears. Fears of nothing and a whir of wooden yo-yo. As the hand slides from the other hand up the sleeve, the smile is vacant and sly and knowing and deep, soulful, freed of personality, freed of tendrils being the tendrils, solid personality of gold and ivory and donkey fur, laughing at itself like courage being cheap. In the air, bushmen's dreams of gazelles turning to eagles in the roar and the purr and the roar. Roar. Roar behind the eyes, beyond parturition, on the other side of the lost dimension, in this one before meat conceived of its hungers. At the foot of the cliff, beside his ears in the room, the cloud bursts, straight and flowing shapes of blue purple from the old skull top as the goddess upward flows from the perineum to all the dimensions bound in one imaginary ball, where there is no imagination, but the madman calling through the corridors of his lost teeth. The young man's sly smile of passion and courage and hopeful fear. Snail trails on the sidewalk in the silver wind. Screams from a lost love on cold, empty streets and loving kisses in midnight playgrounds. The chunky fingers slide up the sleeve as the room fills with feathers and blood and purring roars. The central nervous system is shaped like the Milky Way, and the odor almost like licorice.
Bravo, Paul.
Thanks, Amy. There's so much in that poem, Amy. I mean, I hear his voice reading it to me when I interviewed him at KZOK in 1995. I think of this poem every day of my life. Soul is the elimination of personality, or the Amtrak is a person as much as people are. I mean, this poem, more than any other work of art, has so shaped and improved my life that I can't begin to do justice to it except to keep talking about it, keep asking people to take a look at it, and creating this document on what would have been Michael's 88th birthday. And of course, much of this is written to you, your blue eyes, your dainty wrist. I mean, all of that. Of course, I think of you when I'm reading that. So you are so present, and I wonder if you were there in Africa with him and were experiencing those things.
Yeah, we had one trip to Africa about 9 years before this poem got published. But you know, he had about 4 trips to East Africa before I met him. So there's his whole life is wrapped up in this. He talks about this being memory. And I hear and see his grandparents who he lived with from the age of 5 to 9 in Seattle. I hear his baby Jane, who was tuned in and listening earlier. Now she's a doctor in Alaska and long from being a baby, but takes care of babies. Yeah, it's his whole life. A lot of childhood memories that I've just heard for the first time in hearing the poem, or I've heard before. But I particularly like in the introduction when Robert Hunter says, though McClure's poetry is neither programmatic nor perversely exclusive of meaning, it is needful to grasp that what he's trying to achieve in order to realize how well he has succeeded. The key is this: he does not make things up. He reports with exactness, fastidious exactness. I just think that's Hunter really got him in that little paragraph.
Yes, I had thought about reading the Robert Hunter introduction as well, but then I realized I don't think I have enough voice for all of that. And this, the part about the second part of the poem is that it goes straight through. There's no real break in it, and so I kept grabbing my teacup, thinking I'll take a sip, but I didn't want to do that, and so I just strained my voice to get through it, and I'm glad I did. I mean, it's such a ride of consciousness, and there's just so much depth there that it's really ruined me for all poetry. You know, I mean, I'm serious. I talked to him about it 5 years later or so, and I said, I'm finding that all I can read is projective poetry. And he says, I understand how you feel. And I think not so much because people write spontaneously, although that's the part of it, but that there's an expression of the cosmos that comes through that doesn't come through when people are writing for other intentions or writing for an audience or any number of things. And so, we left after I interviewed him, and he said, come on, let's go have lunch. It's on Penguin, and just find a place that has spring rolls, not the fried things, but the spring rolls. And, I found a Vietnamese restaurant on 12th and Jackson. And then on the way in the car back to drop him off at the hotel or whatever, he said, if you like what I do, it's because you like projective verse. So get that essay and read it aloud, because Olson was writing it, trying to, imitate Ezra Pound's sort of pedantic stance. So, but just, read it aloud, and, it'll make some sense to you.
Yeah. Michael used to say that the only way to get to the universal is to first get to the incredibly personal. You have to get, in other words, into yourself define who you are, and then you will find the universal.
But the
If
way
you're writing, as you said, if you're writing for to tell a story or to actually communicate with somebody, then it's another intention. There's nothing wrong with that intention, but that's why I think why with projective verse you perceive the cosmos.
the weight of the universal is by means of the most intensely personal.
Now you quoted him better than me.
Well, it's so true. And I've said it many times. It's in scratching the beat surface, I think. And, that's what I tell people. It's, Mackey says he's interested in hyper specificity. And I think McClure was. And I think you read that poem and you see what we mean by hyper specificity. And you see his personal myth through there. And it's very rich because of that. And the vulnerabilities to show something besides his angel self, his angel food self, as he put it once in a